Jimin asks Jungkook what he truly wants, but Jungkook's heartbreaking answer reveals a secret that could change their lives forever. Jimin, don't move. If you take one more step, Jungkook will die. The voice came through the darkness just as Jimin reached the edge of the abandoned theater stage, and for one frozen second, the entire world seemed to stop breathing. Rain hammered against the broken glass windows above him. Thunder rolled somewhere beyond the walls, and the sharp smell of dust and wet concrete filled Jimin's lungs. Then Jimin saw him. Jungkook was sitting on the floor beneath a single flickering emergency light, one hand pressed against his bleeding shoulder, his black shirt soaked through with rain and blood. But it was not the blood that made Jimin's heart collapse. It was the thin silver chain around Jungkook's wrist, because Jimin had seen that chain once before, 7 years ago, on the night Jungkook disappeared from his life without saying goodbye. Jungkook, Jimin whispered. His voice barely survived the distance between them. Jungkook lifted his head. Their eyes met. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Jungkook looked older than Jimin remembered, not because of the years themselves, but because something inside his eyes had changed. There was exhaustion there, fear, regret, and something painfully familiar that Jimin had spent years trying to forget. You shouldn't have come, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You sent me a message saying you needed me. I didn't send that message. Jimin stopped. The theater suddenly felt colder. What? Jungkook slowly pushed himself upright, wincing as pain crossed his face. I knew someone would try to bring you here. Who? Jungkook looked toward the darkness behind Jimin. The same person who has been watching us for months. A metallic sound echoed from somewhere above them. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook immediately grabbed his wrist and pulled him down behind an overturned row of seats. Stay quiet. Jungkook, you're bleeding. I'm fine. You're obviously not fine. Jimin, Jungkook's voice softened. Please. That single word silenced him. Jimin could feel Jungkook's fingers trembling around his wrist. Jungkook had always been good at hiding fear. When they were younger, Jungkook could walk into a storm without blinking, laugh when everyone else panicked, and pretend nothing could hurt him. But Jimin knew the truth. Jungkook hated hospitals. Jungkook hated locked doors. Jungkook counted exits whenever he entered a room. Jungkook slept with the lights on whenever nightmares became too vivid. And whenever Jungkook was frightened, he rubbed the edge of his left thumb with his index finger until the skin turned red. He was doing it now. Jimin stared at that tiny movement and realized something terrible. Jungkook was terrified. Tell me what happened, Jimin whispered. Jungkook swallowed. 7 years ago, I didn't leave you because I stopped loving you. Jimin's chest tightened. The words he had buried for years suddenly felt alive again. Don't, Jimin whispered. Don't say that now. You deserve the truth. I deserved it 7 years ago. Jungkook lowered his gaze. I know. A crash exploded somewhere in the theater. Jimin flinched. Jungkook immediately covered Jimin's head with his body as shattered glass rained across the floor. The sound was deafening. Jimin felt Jungkook's heartbeat against his cheek, fast and violent. When the noise finally stopped, Jungkook pulled away. Are you hurt? No, let me see. Jungkook, I'm fine. Jungkook searched Jimin's face anyway, his fingertips hovering near Jimin's cheek as though touching him might make the entire moment disappear. You're still doing that, Jimin whispered. Jungkook frowned. Doing what? Looking at me like you're afraid I'll disappear. Jungkook's expression changed. Because I know what it feels like when you do. Silence settled between them. Outside, lightning illuminated the broken windows, turning the theater white for half a second. Jimin looked away first. 7 years ago, Jungkook had promised him they would never become strangers. Then one morning, Jungkook vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, no letter. Just an empty apartment and a phone number that no longer worked. Jimin had spent years convincing himself that Jungkook had chosen another life. He had hated Jungkook for that. He had missed Jungkook for that. And secretly, despite everything, he had waited. Why did you come back? Jimin asked. Jungkook's eyes remained fixed on him. Because I finally found the person who destroyed everything. Who? Someone who knew about us. Jimin's stomach turned. Us? Jungkook nodded. Someone knew how much you meant to me. They knew exactly what would make me disappear. Jimin stared at him. You disappeared to protect me. I thought I could. You thought. I was young. I was scared. And I believed that if I walked away, they would leave you alone. Jimin's eyes burned. You don't get to decide whether I would rather lose you or lose the truth. Jungkook closed his eyes. I know. Jimin stood, anger finally overpowering fear. 7 years, Jungkook. 7 years of wondering what I did wrong. 7 years of thinking maybe I wasn't enough. You were always enough. Then why? Jungkook looked at him, and the pain in his eyes was almost unbearable. Because loving you became the most dangerous thing I had ever done. Jimin's lips parted, but no words came. Jungkook reached beneath his shirt and pulled out a small envelope protected by a plastic sleeve. The edges were worn. The paper inside had yellowed with age. I've carried this since the night I left. Jimin stared at it. His name was written on the front in handwriting he recognized immediately. Jimin's hands shook as he took it. Why didn't you send it? Because if I sent it, they would know where you were. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Who are they? Jungkook hesitated. I don't know how much time we have. Then start talking. Jungkook took a slow breath. There is a reason I came back now. Jimin waited. Jungkook reached into his pocket and placed a small black box in Jimin's palm. It was warm from Jungkook's body heat. Jimin opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring. No diamonds, no extravagant design. Just a thin band engraved with 2 tiny initials. Jimin's fingers froze. Jungkook looked down. I bought it years ago. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. For me, Jungkook nodded. I never had the courage to give it to you. Jimin laughed through the tears. You disappear for 7 years and come back bleeding in an abandoned theater with a ring you were too afraid to give me. Jungkook's lips trembled into the smallest smile. When you say it like that, it sounds stupid. It is stupid. I know, Jimin closed the box. Then tell me why you're giving it to me now. Jungkook became completely still. Because I don't want another 7 years. Jimin stared at him. The rain continued falling outside. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to approach. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, what do you want? Jungkook looked directly into Jimin's eyes. For the first time that night, there was no fear in his expression, only certainty. One life with you. Jimin's breath broke. Tears slipped silently down his cheeks. Jungkook stepped closer, slowly enough to give Jimin the chance to move away. Jimin didn't. Jungkook lifted his hand and gently wiped one tear from Jimin's cheek. I know I don't deserve an answer, Jungkook whispered. I know I broke your heart. I know I made you wait for a truth you should have had years ago. But if there is even one small part of you that still remembers what we were. Jimin caught Jungkook's hand. I remember everything. Jungkook's eyes shimmered. Then why are you crying? Jimin smiled through his tears. Because I spent 7 years pretending I didn't. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside continued moving, but inside the ruined theater, Jimin felt as though time had folded itself backward. He remembered Jungkook laughing in the kitchen. Jungkook stealing pieces of fruit from his plate. Jungkook falling asleep with a book on his chest. Jungkook pretending not to care when Jimin ignored him after an argument. Jungkook always leaving the last cup of tea untouched because he knew Jimin liked it. Little things, ordinary things, the things that had hurt the most to remember. Jungkook suddenly stiffened. His eyes moved toward the theater entrance. What? Jimin whispered. Someone's here. The police. No. Jungkook grabbed Jimin's hand. We need to leave. But you're injured. Jimin, listen to me. His voice was urgent now. Whatever happens next, don't trust anyone who knows about that letter. Jimin tightened his grip. Why? Jungkook looked at the envelope in Jimin's hand. Because the letter isn't just a confession. Jimin's blood ran cold. What is it? Jungkook looked toward the darkness. A shadow moved behind the broken curtains. Then Jungkook whispered the words that made Jimin realize their reunion had never been an accident. It's evidence. The shadow behind the curtain moved again, and Jungkook reacted before Jimin could even breathe. He pulled Jimin toward the narrow passage behind the stage, keeping one hand pressed against his wounded shoulder, while the other remained locked around Jimin's fingers. Their footsteps disappeared beneath the pounding rain and the distant sirens. Jimin wanted to ask 100 questions, but Jungkook's expression told him that even a whisper could be dangerous. They slipped through a rusted metal door into a backstage corridor that smelled of damp wood, old paint, and something metallic. Blood. Jungkook leaned against the wall for a moment, closing his eyes as pain tightened his jaw. You're getting worse, Jimin whispered. I'm fine. Stop saying that. Jimin grabbed the front of Jungkook's shirt. You are bleeding through your shirt. Jungkook looked down. A dark stain had spread across his side. It's not deep. You don't know that. I know enough. And I know you still lie when you're scared. Jungkook looked at him. For a moment, the tension between them became something else, something older, something painfully intimate. You remember that? Jungkook asked. I remember everything. Jimin's voice cracked. Jungkook lowered his gaze. I wish you didn't. Why? Because remembering me means remembering what I did to you. Jimin released his shirt slowly. No, Jungkook, remembering you means remembering the person I loved before you disappeared. Jungkook swallowed hard. I'm still that person. Then prove it. Jungkook looked at him. Jimin held up the envelope. Tell me what's inside. Jungkook hesitated. Not here. Then where? Somewhere no one can hear us. Jimin almost laughed. 7 years ago you were worried someone would hear us. Tonight you're still worried. Because they're still looking for us. Who are they? Jungkook's jaw tightened. A man named Daniel. The name meant nothing to Jimin. Who is Daniel? Someone who worked for my father. Jimin stared at him. Your father? Jungkook nodded. My father wasn't the man I thought he was. A loud bang echoed from the theater. Jungkook immediately pulled Jimin closer. They're inside. Jimin's pulse raced. How many? I don't know. Then we run. Jungkook shook his head. There is another way out. He pushed open a door hidden behind a hanging black curtain. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. You expect me to follow you into a basement? I expect you to trust me. Jimin looked at him. That's a dangerous thing to ask after 7 years. Jungkook gave a tired smile. I know. They descended. The stairs groaned beneath their weight. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. Jimin could hear Jungkook breathing unevenly. Halfway down, Jungkook stopped. What? Jimin whispered. Nothing. Jungkook, my shoulder hurts. Jimin sighed. At least you're finally admitting something. Jungkook smiled faintly. You always hated when I pretended I wasn't hurt. Because you were terrible at pretending. I wasn't terrible. You once smiled while having a fever of 40 degrees. I didn't want you to worry. I worried anyway. Jungkook looked back at him. I know. They reached the bottom. Jungkook pulled out a small flashlight and illuminated a concrete tunnel. Old pipes ran along the ceiling. The air smelled of rust and rainwater. Where does this go? Jimin asked. An old service road. How do you know? I used it before. Jimin stopped. Before what? Jungkook turned around. Before I disappeared. Silence returned. Jimin stared at him. You planned all of this years ago. No, I learned the tunnels later. Why? Because I needed places no one knew about. Jimin felt a chill move across his skin. You really have been running all these years. Jungkook didn't answer. That silence was an answer. They continued walking until the tunnel opened into a small underground room. There was a wooden table, 2 chairs, a medical kit, bottled water, and a wall covered with photographs. Jimin stopped dead. What is this? Jungkook didn't respond. Jimin stepped closer. Photographs covered the wall. Some were old, some were recent. Many showed Jimin. Jimin leaving work. Jimin sitting alone in a cafe. Jimin walking home. Jimin standing outside his apartment. Jimin sleeping beside a window. His stomach turned. Jungkook, don't look at them. You watched me. No. Then who did? Jungkook stepped toward the wall and removed one photograph. They did. Jimin's anger returned. Who? Daniel. Jungkook's voice became low. He watched you because he wanted to know whether I had returned. Jimin looked at the photographs again. Why me? Because you were my weakness. Jimin stared at him. You keep calling me your weakness. Because that's what they called you. And what do you call me? Jungkook's eyes softened. My reason. Jimin looked away before Jungkook could see how deeply those words affected him. Jungkook opened the medical kit. Sit. You need help. I can do it. Jungkook, please. Jimin sighed and sat him down. He carefully cut through the fabric around the wound. Jungkook hissed when the cloth touched his skin. Sorry, it's okay. Hold still. Jimin cleaned the wound with trembling hands. Jungkook watched him quietly. What? Jimin asked. Nothing. You're staring. I missed you. Jimin's hands stopped. The room became painfully silent. Don't say things like that. Why? Because I spent 7 years trying not to hear them. Jungkook looked down. I'm sorry. Jimin continued cleaning the wound. You should be. I am. Good. Jimin, what? If you hate me, I understand. Jimin tied the bandage. I don't hate you. Jungkook looked at him. That's worse. Why? Because I still love you. The words hung between them. Jimin stared at Jungkook's face. Jungkook looked almost frightened by his own honesty. You shouldn't, Jungkook whispered. But I do. Jimin looked away. I tried not to. I know. I dated other people. Jungkook's face tightened, but he said nothing. I tried to build another life. Did you? No. Jungkook's eyes closed briefly. Neither did I. Jimin stood and walked toward the wall. Then why did you stay away? As every time I thought about coming back, I remembered what happened the night I left. Tell me. Jungkook remained silent. Tell me what happened. He finally reached into his pocket and removed an old photograph. It showed a house burning at night. Jimin recognized it immediately. That's my family's house. Jimin stared. The night I disappeared. Jungkook nodded. Everyone believed the fire was an accident. Wasn't it? No. Jungkook's voice became barely audible. It was a warning. Jimin's eyes widened. A warning for what? Jungkook placed the photograph on the table, for refusing to give them something. What? Jungkook looked at the envelope, the evidence. Jimin opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and an old photograph. The photograph showed 3 men standing outside the burning house. One of them was Jungkook's father. Another was Daniel. The third man was someone Jimin had never expected to see. Jimin's breath caught. No. Jungkook watched his reaction. You know him? Jimin's fingers trembled. That's impossible. Who is he? Jungkook asked. Jimin couldn't speak. He stared at the photograph again. The third man's face was older but unmistakable. It was someone who had been part of Jimin's life for years, someone he trusted, someone who had comforted him after Jungkook disappeared, someone who had always told Jimin that Jungkook had abandoned him. Jimin, Jungkook whispered. Jimin finally looked up. He knew. Who? Jimin's eyes filled with tears. He knew you didn't leave me. Jungkook stood slowly despite the pain. Who? Jimin? Jimin's voice broke. My uncle. Jungkook froze. Jimin looked at the photograph again. Memories began rearranging themselves in his mind. The phone calls, the warnings, the strange envelopes, the sudden advice to forget Jungkook. The night someone had told him Jungkook was gone forever, everything suddenly looked different. He told me you chose to leave, Jimin whispered. He told me you never loved me. Jungkook's expression hardened. He lied. Why? Because he was working with my father. Jimin shook his head. No, Jimin, no, my uncle raised me, and he used that trust. Jimin backed away. I can't believe this. Jungkook moved toward him. You don't have to believe everything tonight. Then what am I supposed to believe? Believe what you can see. Jimin looked at him. Jungkook slowly took his hand and placed it against his chest. His heartbeat was racing beneath Jimin's palm. This never stopped. Jimin's eyes filled again. Jungkook, I loved you when I left. His voice trembled. I loved you every day I was gone. Jimin closed his eyes. For years he had imagined 1,000 explanations for Jungkook's disappearance. None had ever been this painful. None had ever been this beautiful. Suddenly a phone on the table vibrated. Both of them froze. Jungkook stared at the screen. There was no number, only a message. Jimin stepped closer. What does it say? Jungkook read it once. His face lost all color. Jungkook, he turned the phone toward Jimin. The message contained only one sentence. I told you, Jungkook, you can run from me, but you cannot hide the person you love. Jimin's blood ran cold. Another message appeared before either of them could move. This time there was a photograph attached. Jimin stared at it. It had been taken only minutes earlier. It showed Jimin and Jungkook standing together in the underground room. The camera had been inside the room with them. Jimin slowly looked around. The walls, the ceiling, the photographs, the pipes, the shadows. Someone had been watching them the entire time. Jimin stopped breathing when the phone vibrated again because the new photograph showed something that neither Jimin nor Jungkook could explain. The camera angle came from directly behind them. Jungkook grabbed Jimin and pulled him away from the wall. Don't look around. Someone is here. I know. Jungkook's voice was calm, but his fingers were trembling. Jimin noticed immediately. You're scared. Yes. Jungkook looked directly into Jimin's eyes. But I'm more afraid of what they'll do to you. A faint clicking sound came from somewhere above the ceiling. Jungkook immediately turned off the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the room. Jimin could hear only their breathing and the steady drip of water from a broken pipe. Then came another sound, footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was walking directly above them. Jimin instinctively moved closer to Jungkook. Jungkook placed one arm around him and raised his injured hand toward his lips, silently asking him to remain quiet. The footsteps stopped. A long silence followed, then a voice came through the ventilation shaft. You always were predictable, Jungkook. Jimin felt Jungkook's body become rigid. Daniel, Jungkook whispered. The voice laughed softly. Still protecting him after all these years, Jungkook stepped toward the ceiling. Leave Jimin out of this. You brought him back into it. He has nothing to do with this. Everything has to do with him. Jimin's stomach tightened. What do you want? Daniel laughed again. I don't want anything from you, Jimin. I only want Jungkook to remember what happens when he refuses to obey. Jungkook's eyes hardened. I'm not the frightened boy you knew. No, you're worse. You're willing to die for him. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Don't answer him. I have to. No. Jimin caught his arm. That's what he wants. Jungkook looked down at Jimin's hand. You're right. Daniel's voice came again. How touching. A loud metallic crash shook the room. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jimin covered his head while Jungkook pulled him toward the far wall. We need to move. Where? There's another tunnel. You know another tunnel. I built it. Jimin stared at him. You built this place, not all of it. Jungkook pushed aside a metal cabinet, revealing a narrow opening in the wall. Go. What about you? I'm right behind you. Jungkook, Jimin, go. Something in his voice made Jimin obey. He crawled through the opening, feeling cold concrete scrape against his palms. Jungkook followed. They emerged into another corridor just as the underground room behind them filled with a deafening explosion. Jimin screamed. Jungkook covered his ears and pulled him against his chest. Smoke rushed through the tunnel. Jungkook, I'm here. You're bleeding again. Forget the blood. I can't. Jungkook coughed. We have to keep moving. They ran. The tunnel seemed endless. Every few seconds, Jungkook looked over his shoulder. Jimin could hear the distant sound of people entering the passage behind them. How long? Jimin asked. What? How long have you known Daniel was watching you? Jungkook didn't answer. Jungkook, 3 years. Jimin stopped. Jungkook turned around. 3 years. Yes, and you still didn't contact me. I couldn't. You could have told me, and put you in danger. I was already in danger. Jimin's voice echoed through the tunnel. You just didn't tell me. Jungkook stared at him. I know. You don't get to protect me by destroying me. I know. You don't get to disappear and decide that my life is safer without you. I know. Then why did you do it? Jungkook's expression broke. Because I was terrified. Jimin went silent. Jungkook had never admitted that before, not once. I was terrified, Jungkook repeated. I thought if they knew how much I loved you, they would use you against me, and they did. Jimin's anger softened into something painful. What did they threaten? Jungkook looked away. Your life. Jimin's chest tightened. What happened? They sent me photographs. Of me. Jungkook nodded. You sleeping, you leaving work, you sitting alone. They wanted me to understand that they could reach you whenever they wanted. Jimin's eyes burned. So you left. I thought disappearing would save you. And did it? Jungkook looked at him. No. Jimin shook his head. It only made both of us miserable. Jungkook lowered his gaze. I know. Distant siren echoed through the tunnel. Jungkook suddenly grabbed Jimin's hand again. Come on. They reached a steel door. Jungkook entered a code. The door opened into a small garage beneath an abandoned warehouse. A black car waited inside. Jimin stared. You planned everything. I had to. Jungkook opened the passenger door. Get in. Jimin hesitated. Where are we going? Somewhere Daniel can't find us. Does that place exist? Jungkook looked at him. I hope so. They drove through the rain. Neither spoke for several minutes. Jimin watched the city blur beyond the window. Neon lights stretched across the wet streets like broken reflections. Jungkook drove with one hand, the other resting against his injured shoulder. Every few minutes, Jimin glanced at him. Finally, Jimin reached over and touched his wrist. Jungkook looked at him briefly. What? Nothing. Jimin traced the silver chain around Jungkook's wrist. You kept this. Of course. Why? Jungkook smiled faintly. Gave it to me? Jimin looked confused. I don't remember. You were 17. Jungkook's voice softened. You said it would remind me that someone believed in me. Jimin stared at him. I forgot. I didn't. Silence returned. Then Jimin asked the question he had been afraid to ask. Did you love anyone else? Jungkook's hands tightened around the steering wheel. No, not once, not once. Jimin looked down. I tried. Jungkook glanced at him. You tried to forget you. Did it work? Jimin smiled sadly. You're sitting next to me, what do you think? Jungkook's eyes softened. For the first time that night he laughed quietly. Jimin remembered that laugh. It was the same laugh he had missed more than he wanted to admit. They eventually reached an old house at the edge of the city. It stood behind tall trees, hidden from the main road. Jungkook parked and checked the mirrors before getting out. Inside, the house was surprisingly warm. There were bookshelves, old lamps, a fireplace, and photographs covered with cloth. Jimin noticed a piano in the corner. You still play? He asked. Jungkook nodded. Sometimes. Why did you stop? You weren't there to listen. Jimin looked away. Jungkook walked toward the fireplace and removed one of the covered photographs. It showed them when they were younger. Jimin smiled despite himself. You kept that. I kept everything. Everything, Jungkook nodded. Your old messages, your notes. The movie ticket from our first date, the receipt from the cafe where you spilled coffee on me. Jimin laughed. You remember that? You cried because you thought I was angry. You were angry. I was pretending. Jimin looked at him. Why? Jungkook smiled. Because you were cute when you panicked. Jimin shook his head. You're impossible, and you still love me. Jimin's smile disappeared. Jungkook's did too. The room suddenly became quiet. Jimin walked toward him. Yes, Jungkook froze. What? I still love you. Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. Jimin, but love doesn't erase what happened. I know. If we're going to have any chance, I need the truth. Jungkook nodded. You'll get it. Jimin pointed toward the envelope. Everything. Everything. Jungkook sat at the piano bench and opened the letter. Then listen. He unfolded the paper carefully. The handwriting was his. Jimin recognized every curve. I wrote this the night I left, Jungkook began. I wrote it because I was afraid I would never see you again. Jimin sat beside him. Jungkook read silently for a moment before speaking. I want to tell you that I wasn't leaving because I stopped loving you. I was leaving because someone had threatened to hurt you if I stayed. Jimin closed his eyes. Who? Jungkook continued reading. My father. Jimin opened his eyes. Jungkook's voice shook. My father knew about us. Leaved you with the reason I had become disobedient. He told me that if I didn't cooperate, he would make sure you disappeared. Jimin felt his hands go cold. Your father threatened me. Yes, and Daniel. Daniel carried out his orders. Jimin looked at the photograph again. But your father died. That's what everyone believes. Jimin stared at him. What? Jungkook looked toward the dark window. My father didn't die in that fire. The words landed like a blow. He's alive. Jimin couldn't speak. Jungkook slowly closed the letter. And he's the reason I came back. A phone rang upstairs. Both of them froze. Jungkook's expression changed instantly. Stay here. No, Jimin, I'm not letting you disappear again. Jungkook looked at him. Then stay behind me. They climbed the stairs together. The ringing stopped. A single bedroom door stood open at the end of the hallway. Jungkook slowly approached it. Jimin followed. Inside there was no one, only a table. On it lay a fresh bouquet of white roses. Beside the roses was a note. Jungkook picked it up. His face turned pale. Jimin leaned closer. The message contained only 6 words. Welcome home, my son, I missed you. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, who left that note? Jungkook didn't answer. He stood completely still beside the table, staring at the handwriting as though the 6 words had reached through time and wrapped themselves around his throat. The room smelled faintly of roses and old wood, but beneath the sweetness was another scent, smoke. Fresh smoke. Jimin noticed it first. Jungkook, smell that. Jungkook's eyes immediately shifted toward the curtains. Someone was here. He grabbed Jimin's hand and pulled him backward just as the bedroom window shattered. A bullet tore through the wall where Jimin's head had been seconds earlier. Jungkook pushed Jimin to the floor and covered him with his body. Don't move. Another shot struck the wardrobe. Jimin's heart slammed against his ribs. Jungkook, stay down. Jungkook reached beneath his jacket and pulled out a small handgun. Jimin had never seen that side of him before. Jungkook moved toward the window but stopped when he noticed something lying on the floor. A white rose. Its stem had been cut cleanly. Beneath it was a tiny black memory card. Jungkook picked it up. What is it? Jimin asked. Evidence. From your father, maybe. Jungkook looked toward the broken window, or a trap. They waited in silence until the rain swallowed the distant sound of footsteps. Jungkook checked the hallway before pulling Jimin upright. We leave now. Where? The old train station. Why? Because if my father is alive, he'll expect me to run. Jimin stared at him. And you want to go where he expects? No, Jungkook's eyes hardened. I want him to think I am. They rushed downstairs. Jungkook grabbed a laptop from a locked cabinet and inserted the memory card. The screen remained black for several seconds, then a video appeared. A man sat in a dark room. His face was hidden by shadows. Jungkook, the man said. If you're watching this, then you've finally returned. Jimin felt Jungkook's hand tighten around his. I know you've spent years believing your father was dead. You were wrong. The video paused briefly before continuing. Your father never wanted you dead. He wanted you obedient. Unfortunately, you chose love instead. Jungkook's expression became colder. Turn it off. Jimin shook his head. No, we need to hear everything. The man continued. The boy beside you is the key, always has been. Jimin's breath caught. What does that mean? The video ended. Jungkook stared at the blank screen. I don't know. You're lying. Jimin, you knew there was something about me. Jungkook looked away. I knew they were interested in you. That's not the same thing. I didn't know why. Jimin stepped closer. You knew more than you told me. Jungkook's silence confirmed it. What aren't you telling me? Jungkook closed the laptop. Not here. You always say that, because people are listening. Jimin's anger fled, then let them listen. Jungkook suddenly grabbed his shoulders. You don't understand. Then make me understand. If I tell you everything, you might hate me. Jimin stared at him. I already spent 7 years hatting the version of you I thought existed. I'm not afraid anymore. Jungkook's eyes filled with pain. My father wasn't the only person who knew about us. Jimin's voice became quiet. Who else? Your uncle. Jimin stepped backward. No, he knew. No, he helped my father. Stop, Jimin. I said stop. Jimin's breathing became uneven. Jungkook immediately softened. I'm sorry. Jimin turned away, pressing his palms against his eyes. His uncle had been the person who stayed beside him after Jungkook vanished. The person who told him to eat. The person who drove him home when he couldn't stop crying. The person who repeatedly said Jungkook had abandoned him. If Jungkook was telling the truth, then some of Jimin's most comforting memories had been built on a lie. Why would he do that? Jimin whispered. Money. Jungkook shook his head. Power. Power over what? You. Jimin turned around. Me. Jungkook nodded. Your family owns something valuable. What? A company? No. A property? No. Jungkook hesitated. A secret. Jimin's face tightened. What secret? Your parents discovered something years ago. My parents, before they died. Jimin went completely still. Jungkook continued carefully. They discovered that several powerful people were using your family's foundation to move illegal money. Jimin stared at him. That's impossible. Your parents were going to expose them. And they died. Yes. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. You think they were killed? Jungkook nodded. I know they were. The room seemed to tilt. Jimin remembered his mother's final words. He had been young, but he remembered her fear. He remembered his father's locked study. He remembered being told never to enter it. He remembered his uncle taking the keys. The study, Jimin whispered. What? My father's study. Jungkook immediately understood. Where is it? It was sealed after my parents died. Do you still have the key? Jimin shook his head. My uncle took it. Jungkook looked toward the table. Maybe that's why they need you. Jimin stared at him. Why? Because you may be the only person who can access what your parents left behind. Jimin felt a strange pressure in his chest. I don't remember anything. Memory doesn't always disappear, Jungkook said softly. Sometimes it hides. Jimin looked at him. You know something about my childhood. Jungkook didn't answer. Jungkook, I was there the night your parents died. Jimin froze. What? Jungkook swallowed. I saw the car. You were there. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was 14. You knew. I knew something was wrong. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because your uncle made sure no one did. A sound came from downstairs. Both men froze. Jungkook raised one finger. Silence. Then the floorboard creaked. Once, twice. Someone was entering the house. Jungkook pulled Jimin behind the bedroom door. Footsteps moved slowly up the stairs. Jimin could hear his own heartbeat. Jungkook placed a finger against his lips. Steps stopped outside. The door opened slightly. A shadow appeared. Jungkook moved instantly, grabbing the intruder and slamming him against the wall. Jimin gasped. Jungkook, the man struggled. Jungkook pinned him down. Who sent you? The man laughed. You're too late. Who sent you? He already has him. Jungkook froze. Who? The man looked directly at Jimin. Your uncle. Jimin's blood turned cold. My uncle, the man smiled. He wants you to come home. Jimin stepped backward. Why? The man's smile disappeared. Because your uncle found the study. Jungkook's expression changed. What did he find? The man looked at him. A recording. Jimin's breath caught. Of what? The night your parents died. Silence. Jungkook's grip tightened. Where is it? The man laughed weakly. You'll never reach it. Where? Your uncle has already gone to the old house. Jimin looked at Jungkook, the old house, his childhood home. The place he had avoided for years, because every room seemed to carry a memory he couldn't explain. Jungkook released the man and stood. We're going there. Jimin nodded. Together, Jungkook looked at him. Are you sure? Jimin wiped his tears. You asked me what you wanted. Jungkook's eyes softened. And you answered. Jimin stepped closer. You said one life with me. He took Jungkook's hand. If that's what you still want, then stop trying to protect me by leaving me behind. Jungkook stared at their joined hands, then he squeezed Jimin's fingers. I won't. They left the house before dawn. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained dark and heavy. They drove toward Jimin's childhood home. Neither noticed the black vehicle following them from a distance. Inside that vehicle, a man watched their car disappear around a corner. He lifted his phone. They're heading there. A pause followed. Then he smiled. Good, let them find the truth. At the same time, inside Jimin's old home, a door slowly opened by itself. Behind it was the sealed study. On the dusty desk lay an old cassette recorder. Its red light was already blinking. Someone had pressed play. And from the darkness came the sound of Jimin's mother's voice, whispering a sentence that could destroy everything Jimin and Jungkook believed about the past. If anything happens to us, never let Jimin know that Jungkook was there. Jimin, stop! Jungkook slammed his foot on the brakes so hard that the tires screamed against the wet road. But Jimin was already staring through the windshield at the old house waiting at the end of the tree-lined driveway, its windows black and empty beneath the grey morning sky. The words from the cassette seemed to echo inside his head. Never let Jimin know that Jungkook was there. Jimin slowly turned toward Jungkook. Why did my mother say your name? Jungkook's hands remained frozen around the steering wheel. I don't know. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Then why did she say you were there? Jungkook finally looked at him. His face was pale. Because I was. Jimin's chest tightened. You said you only saw the car. I lied. The confession came quietly. Jimin stared at him, unable to speak. Jungkook turned off the engine. For several seconds neither moved. The silence inside the car felt heavier than the storm clouds above them. How much? Jimin asked. How much did you know? Jungkook lowered his head. More than I told you. Jimin closed his eyes. Tell me everything. Jungkook took a slow breath. The night your parents died, I followed my father. Jimin opened his eyes. Why? Because I suspected he was hiding something. I was 14. I didn't understand what it was, but I knew he was afraid. Jungkook looked toward the house. I saw him enter your parents' study. With Daniel, yes, and my uncle, Jungkook nodded. He was already there. Jimin's fingers curled into his palms. What happened? I heard shouting. Jungkook's voice trembled. Your father was arguing with them. Your mother told them they would never get the files. Your father threatened to expose everyone. Then, the lights went out. Jimin stared at him. What happened after that? Jungkook swallowed. I heard a gunshot. Jimin's breathing stopped. I ran toward the house. Your mother saw me through the study window. She knew you. Yes. What did she say? Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. She told me to run. Jimin stared at him. Why? Because she knew what would happen if they caught me. Then how did you survive? Daniel found me. Jimin's expression hardened. Daniel, he grabbed me before I could get inside. He told me my father would kill you if I said anything. And you believed him. I was 14, Jimin. Jungkook's voice cracked. I was terrified. Jimin looked away. He wanted to be angry. He was angry, but beneath the anger was something worse. Grief for the boy Jungkook had been. What happened next? Jimin asked. The house caught fire. Jimin stared at him. You watched it burn? Yes, and you never told me. I tried. When? 7 years ago. Jimin looked at him. The night you disappeared, Jungkook nodded. I had the letter. I wanted to tell you everything. But you didn't. I was intercepted. By whom? Your uncle. Jimin's face went cold. He came to me that night. Jungkook looked down. He told me if I stayed you would die. Jimin's voice shook, and you believed him again. I had already seen what they were capable of. So you left me? Yes. Jimin turned toward the window. Tears blurred the house outside. You should have trusted me. I know. You should have given me the choice. I know. You should have let me hate you honestly instead of making me hate myself. Jungkook's eyes filled. I'm sorry. Jimin wiped his cheek. I know. They sat in silence. Finally, Jimin reached for the door handle. Jungkook caught his wrist. Wait, what? If my father is inside, we don't know what he's capable of. Jimin looked at him. Neither of us is leaving the other behind. Jungkook slowly released his wrist. Together. They entered the house through the side door. The smell of dust and old furniture immediately surrounded Jimin. Every step awakened a memory. A staircase where his mother used to wait for him. A hallway where his father would read newspapers. A small wooden table where Jimin had once built paper airplanes. He stopped when he saw a faded pencil mark on the wall, his childhood height measurements. The final mark had been made the year his parents died. Jimin touched it with trembling fingers. I remember this. Jungkook stood behind him. Your mother made those marks. Jimin smiled sadly. She always said I was growing too quickly. I disappeared. Then everything changed. Jungkook gently touched his shoulder. You don't have to remember everything at once. I need to. Why? Because someone has been controlling my memories for years. They reached the study. The door was unlocked. Jimin pushed it open. Dust floated through a beam of pale morning light. The room looked untouched. Books lined the walls. A large wooden desk stood beneath the window. On the desk sat the cassette recorder. Jimin walked toward it slowly. Jungkook followed. Don't touch it yet. Why? It could be wired. Jimin looked around. Then how do we listen? Jungkook carefully examined the recorder. It's safe. He pressed play. Static filled the room. Then Jimin's mother's voice returned. If anything happens to us, never let Jimin know that Jungkook was there. Jimin's eyes widened. His mother's voice continued. Not because Jungkook is responsible, because his father will use him to reach Jimin. Jimin looked at Jungkook. What? The recording continued. Jungkook doesn't know the truth. His father has hidden the documents inside something Jimin will inherit when he turns 25. Jimin's heart began racing. What inheritance? His mother's voice answered. The old watch. Jimin froze. The watch? Jungkook asked. Jimin remembered it. His father's old mechanical watch had been given to him by his uncle after his 25th birthday. He had kept it in a drawer for years without understanding why it mattered. I have it, Jimin whispered. Jungkook's expression changed. Where? At my apartment. We need to get it. The recorder clicked. Jimin's mother's voice returned. If Jimin ever learns the truth, tell him this. The watch contains more than a memory. It contains the name of the man who ordered our deaths. The recording stopped. Jimin stood motionless. The name, he whispered. We can finally know. A slow clap came from the doorway. Jimin and Jungkook turned. A man stood there in a dark coat. His hair was grey at the temples, but his face was unmistakable. Jungkook's father. Jimin's heart stopped. Jungkook stepped in front of Jimin. You, the older man smiled. Hello, son. Jungkook's breathing became uneven. You're supposed to be dead. I wanted you to believe that. Jimin stared at him. You killed my parents. The man's smile disappeared. No, he looked directly at Jimin. Your uncle did. Jimin froze. What? Your uncle pulled the trigger. Jungkook's father stepped into the room. I only gave the order. Jungkook lunged forward, but the man raised a gun. One more step and Jimin dies. Jungkook stopped. Jimin could feel his hand shaking behind him. Why? Jimin asked. The older man looked at him. Because your parents found something they should never have found. What? A network. And the watch. The watch contains the final piece. Jimin's voice became cold. Then why haven't you taken it? The man smiled. Because only you can open it. Jungkook stared at his father. Why bring us here? Because I need you, Jungkook. For what? To make Jimin trust me. Jimin's eyes narrowed. He will never help you. Perhaps not. The older man looked at Jungkook. But he will help you. Jungkook's face hardened. Leave him alone. You still don't understand. The man lowered his gun slightly. The watch isn't the only thing your parents left behind. Jimin felt a chill move through him. What else? The man smiled. A confession. Whose? Yours. Jimin stared at him. Mine. When you were a child, you saw everything. Jimin's heart began pounding. I don't remember. That's because your uncle made sure you forgot. Jungkook stepped closer. What did he do? He didn't erase your memory. The older man smiled. He replaced it. Jimin's face went pale. How? With a story. Jungkook looked at Jimin. What story? The man answered softly. That your parents died in an accident, that Jungkook abandoned you, that you were alone. Jimin's breathing became shallow. Suddenly, fragments flashed through his mind. A red curtain, his mother's hand, a man's voice shouting. Jungkook standing beside a staircase, a gunshot, a watch falling onto the floor. Jimin grabbed his head. Stop! Jungkook immediately reached for him. Jimin, I remember. The older man smiled. Yes. Jimin looked up, tears streaming down his face. I remember you. He pointed toward Jungkook's father. You were there. Yes, and you. Jimin turned toward the doorway. His voice broke. You were holding the gun. Jungkook's father smiled. Now you remember. I remember you, Jimin whispered, staring at the older man with tears trembling in his eyes, but I also remember someone else. The room fell silent. Jungkook looked at Jimin, his expression filled with confusion and fear. Who? Jimin pressed one hand against his temple. Images kept returning in broken fragments. The red curtain, his mother's frightened face, his father's voice, the metallic click of a gun, and Jungkook standing near the staircase with blood on his sleeve. Jungkook, Jimin whispered, you were there. I told you I was. No, Jimin shook his head. You weren't just outside. Jungkook stepped closer. What do you remember? You were holding something. Jungkook's face went pale. What? A key. The older man suddenly smiled. Jungkook noticed it. You know what he's remembering. The older man said nothing. Jungkook turned toward his father. What did you do to him? Nothing. Don't lie. Your friend was a frightened child. His mind did what frightened minds do. Jimin stared at the man. You're lying. Am I? The man raised the gun slightly. You remember the fire, don't you? Jimin's breathing became uneven. Yes, then remember who started it. Jimin closed his eyes. A flash came, his father standing beside the desk, his mother kneeling beside him, Jungkook entering through the doorway, someone shouting, a gunshot, then flames. It wasn't Jungkook, Jimin whispered. No, the older man said, it wasn't. Jimin opened his eyes. It was you, Jungkook's father smiled. You were always more intelligent than your uncle believed. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Why did you kill them? Because they were going to destroy everything. Everything you built. Everything that kept people like us powerful. Jimin stepped forward. You ruined my life. No, your uncle did. You gave him the order, and he followed it. Jimin's hands trembled. Why make me forget? Because you had seen the evidence. What evidence? The older man looked toward the desk. The watch. Jungkook moved toward the desk. Where is it? Not here. Then where? The man smiled. You know where? Jungkook froze. Jimin looked at him. What? Jungkook slowly turned toward the fireplace. The clock. Jimin followed his gaze. An old grandfather clock stood against the wall. My father always kept that clock locked. Jungkook approached it. He removed a small metal key from his pocket. Jimin stared. Where did you get that? Jungkook looked at the key. You gave it to me. When? The night before I disappeared. Jimin's heart skipped. I don't remember. You told me to keep it safe. Jungkook inserted the key into a hidden lock beneath the clock. A click echoed through the room. The bottom panel opened. Inside was a small velvet box. Jungkook took it out. Jimin's hands shook. That's it. Jungkook opened the box. Inside was his father's old watch. The metal surface was scratched, but the hands were still moving. Jimin stared at it. How? Jungkook picked it up. Mechanical movement. No. Jimin stepped closer. Look at the back. There was a tiny engraving, a sequence of numbers. Jungkook recognized them. Coordinates. The older man suddenly moved. He fired. Jungkook pulled Jimin down. The bullet struck the clock. Wood exploded across the floor. Jungkook rolled behind the desk and fired back. The older man disappeared through the doorway. Jungkook, Jimin shouted. Stay here. No, Jimin. I'm not letting you go alone. Jungkook looked at him for 1 second, then nodded. Stay close. They ran into the hallway. The older man's footsteps echoed downstairs. Jungkook followed, but Jimin stopped suddenly. Wait, what? Jimin pointed toward the wall. A framed family portrait had been moved. Behind it was a hidden compartment. Inside lay several photographs and a small notebook. Jimin picked up the notebook. His mother's handwriting covered the first page. This is hers. Jungkook looked over his shoulder. The first sentence made both of them freeze. If you're reading this, then the man who betrayed us has finally returned. Jimin turned the page. Names filled the notebook. Dates, bank accounts, locations, meetings, everything connected. Jungkook stared at the pages. This is enough to expose them. Jimin shook his head. Not yet. Why? Because there's something missing. What? Jimin pointed to the final page. The last name. The page had been torn out. Jungkook looked toward the staircase. Your father took it. Then we need to find him. They ran outside. The rain had started again. The older man's car was already disappearing down the road. Jungkook rushed toward another vehicle parked nearby. Jimin followed. Can you track him? Maybe. Jungkook started the engine. What are the coordinates? Jimin gave him the numbers engraved on the watch. Jungkook entered them into the navigation system. A location appeared. An abandoned observatory outside the city. Jimin stared at the screen. Why would he go there? Because my father always liked places where nobody could see him. They drove for nearly an hour. The road became narrower and darker. Trees closed around them. Finally, an old observatory appeared through the fog. Its dome was broken and vines covered the stone walls. Jungkook parked behind the building. Stay behind me. Jimin looked at him. You know I'm not going to. Jungkook sighed. I know. Entered through a side door. Inside, the observatory smelled of rust, dust, and damp stone. Their footsteps echoed across the empty floor. Where is he? Jimin whispered. I don't know. A light suddenly flickered on above them. A projector started by itself. Images appeared on the wall. Jimin saw himself as a child. He saw his parents. He saw Jungkook. He saw the night of the fire. His breathing stopped. That's me. Jungkook moved closer. The video showed young Jimin hiding behind a curtain. His mother was kneeling in front of him. Don't be afraid, she whispered. Remember what I told you. Young Jimin nodded. Then the video showed Jungkook entering the room. His younger face was terrified. He was carrying the old watch. Jimin stared. I gave it to you. Jungkook nodded slowly. Yes, the video continued. Jungkook's father entered. Behind him was Jimin's uncle. His uncle raised a gun. Jimin's mother stepped between them. Then the screen went black. Jimin's breathing became ragged. I saw it. What? I saw who fired. Jungkook turned toward him. Who? Jimin looked at the screen. My uncle. Jungkook's face hardened. But your father. He gave the order. Jimin wiped his tears, but my uncle pulled the trigger. A voice came from the darkness. Finally, they turned. Jimin's uncle stood beneath the observatory dome. He looked older now, but his eyes were unchanged. Cold, familiar. You remembered. Jimin stared at him. You lied to me for years. I protected you. You killed my parents. They were going to destroy you. You destroyed me. The man's face hardened. I gave you a life. You gave me a lie. Jungkook stepped in front of Jimin. It's over. Jimin's uncle laughed. No, it's beginning. He held up a small device. Everything you've seen tonight has been recorded. Jungkook's expression changed. Why? Because I wanted you to remember. Jimin looked at him. Why? Because the final evidence isn't in the watch. Jimin's heart sank. Then where? His uncle pointed at Jimin. Inside you. Jimin froze. What? Your father knew you were watching that night. He recorded your memory before the fire. Jungkook stared at him. That's impossible. Not if he knew you would forget. Jimin's uncle smiled. Your father left the truth where nobody could steal it. Where? Jimin whispered. In the one place only you could access. My memory? Exactly. Jimin felt tears roll down his cheeks. Why bring me here? His uncle's smile faded. Because I need you to remember the final name. Whose name? The man stepped closer. The person who ordered your parents' deaths. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Jungkook looked equally confused. It wasn't my father. Jimin's uncle shook his head. Your father's boss. The observatory lights suddenly went out. A gunshot shattered the darkness. Jimin felt Jungkook grab him. Then Jungkook's voice broke through the chaos. Jimin, run. Jimin, run! Jungkook's voice cut through the darkness, but Jimin refused to move without him. The sound of another gunshot exploded through the observatory. Glass rained from the broken dome, and Jungkook shoved Jimin behind a stone pillar just as a bullet struck the floor where they had been standing. Jungkook, I'm here. His hand found Jimin's in the darkness. Don't let go. I won't. They crouched behind the pillar while footsteps moved through the observatory. Jimin could hear his uncle shouting somewhere beyond the darkness. You can't hide forever. Jungkook tightened his grip. Stay low. Where's your father? I don't know. And my uncle? Somewhere in here. A faint red emergency light suddenly flickered on. Jimin saw Jungkook's face, pale and tense, blood running from a small cut above his eyebrow. You're hurt. It's nothing. You always say that. Jungkook almost smiled. And you always notice. Before Jimin could answer, a loud metallic crash came from the upper platform. Jungkook looked up. We have to get to the control room. Why? Because whoever controls the lights controls the cameras. And, if we can access the recording system, we can save everything. Jimin nodded. They moved silently along the wall. The observatory had become a maze of shadows and broken machinery. Jimin could smell gunpowder in the air. Somewhere nearby, someone was breathing heavily. Then a voice whispered from behind them. Jimin. He froze. It was his uncle. Come to me. Jungkook immediately pulled Jimin behind him. Stay away from him. His uncle laughed. Still playing hero, Jungkook. You're finished. You don't understand what you're protecting. I understand enough. Do you? His uncle stepped into the red light. Ask Jimin what happened before the fire. Jimin stared at him. I already remember. No, you remember what they wanted you to remember. What does that mean? Your father didn't die immediately. Jimin's face went pale. What? He survived the shooting. Jungkook stared at the man. You said he died. He did eventually. Why? Because he told me where the evidence was. Jimin's voice trembled. What did he say? His uncle smiled. He said only Jimin could open it. Jungkook stepped forward. Where is it? You'll never find it. Try me. A gunshot rang out. Jungkook pulled Jimin down again. The bullet struck the metal railing. Move, Jungkook shouted. They ran toward the control room while bullets struck the machinery behind them. They reached a narrow metal door. Jungkook kicked it open. Inside were old monitors and a central control panel. Jimin shut the door behind them. Can you lock it? For a few seconds. Jungkook began working on the panel. Jimin watched the monitors flicker to life. Camera feeds appeared across the screens. One showed the observatory entrance. The showed the upper platform. Another showed a room beneath the building. Then Jimin saw someone on one of the screens. Jungkook. Jungkook looked up. What? That's your father. The older man was standing in an underground chamber holding a metal case. Jimin pointed to another monitor. And my uncle is going there. Jungkook's expression hardened. They're going to meet. Why? Because they need the final evidence. Jimin looked at the screen. Then we go there. Jungkook shook his head. It's a trap. Everything is a trap. Jimin, we can't keep running. Jungkook stared at him. I'm not afraid of them anymore. Jungkook's expression softened. I know. Are you? Jungkook hesitated. Yes. Jimin stepped closer. Good, good, because being afraid means you still have something to lose. Jungkook looked at him. I have you. Jimin reached for his hand. Then don't lose me. They left the control room through a service passage. The stairs descended beneath the observatory. The air became colder with every step. At the bottom was a steel door. Jungkook opened it carefully. Inside stood his father and Jimin's uncle. Between them was a metal case. Both men turned. You came, Jungkook's father said. Jungkook stepped forward. It's over. His father laughed. You still believe that? Jimin looked at the case. What's inside? The truth. Then open it. His uncle smiled. Only you can. Jimin stepped forward. Jungkook tried to stop him. Jimin, wait. No. Jimin walked toward the case. It had a small fingerprint scanner. He placed his hand on it. The lock clicked. The case opened. Inside was a recorder, several documents, and a photograph. Jimin picked up the photograph first. It showed his parents with another man. Jimin recognized him instantly. That's... Jungkook looked at the picture. My father's employer. His father smiled. Now you understand. Jimin looked at the documents. Names appeared on every page. Financial transactions. Secret meetings, payments. Then he saw the final name. His hands began shaking. No. Jungkook stepped closer. Who is it? Jimin couldn't answer. He turned the document toward Jungkook. Jungkook's face changed. The name belonged to someone neither of them expected. Someone who had appeared in their lives recently. Someone who had been helping Jimin search for Jungkook. Someone who had claimed to want the truth. This can't be real, Jimin whispered. Jungkook looked at his father. You forged it. I didn't. Then who? His father pointed toward the door. Ask the person standing behind you. Jimin slowly turned. A figure stood in the doorway. Jimin's breath stopped. It was the same person who had helped him reconnect with Jungkook. The same person who had encouraged him to investigate his parents' deaths. The same person who had secretly arranged their meetings. You, Jimin whispered. The figure smiled sadly. I'm sorry. Jungkook immediately stepped between them. Stay away from Jimin. I never wanted him hurt. Then why were you helping them? Because I had no choice. Jimin stared at the person. You knew everything, not everything. You knew Jungkook was alive. Yes, you knew my uncle was involved. Yes, you knew my parents were murdered. The person lowered their head. Yes, Jimin's voice broke. Then why did you help me? The answer came quietly. Because your parents asked me to. Jimin froze. What? The person stepped into the light and placed an old envelope on the floor. They knew they were going to die. Jungkook stared. How? Because they knew who was coming. Jimin looked at the envelope. His mother's handwriting was visible on the front. For Jimin when he remembers. Jimin's hands trembled as he picked it up. He opened it slowly. Inside was a final letter. Jimin read the first sentence. His eyes immediately filled with tears. My dear Jimin, if you are reading this, then Jungkook has finally come home. Jungkook looked away, overwhelmed. Jimin continued reading silently until his expression changed. What's wrong? Jungkook asked. Jimin couldn't answer. Jimin, he handed him the letter. Jungkook read it. His face became pale. The letter contained a revelation that changed the meaning of everything they had believed about their separation. Jungkook looked at Jimin with tears in his eyes. You knew me before that night. Jimin shook his head. What? Your parents said I had met you years earlier. Jimin stared at him. Before we thought we met. Jungkook slowly looked toward his father. How? His father said nothing. Jimin read the final line of the letter aloud. Jungkook was never the stranger you thought he was. He was the boy who saved your life when you were 8. Silence filled the underground chamber. Jungkook's eyes widened. 8. Jimin looked at him. Suddenly, a memory flashed through Jimin's mind. A little boy standing beside a river, a hand pulling him away from the water, a familiar laugh, a silver chain around a small wrist. Jimin whispered, "It was you." Jungkook stared at him. "Jimin, you saved me." Jungkook's eyes filled with tears. "I remember." Jimin stepped closer. "You were there long before we fell in love." Jungkook reached for his hand. "Maybe that's why I could never leave you completely." Jimin squeezed his fingers. But before either could say anything else, the lights went out again. A single gunshot echoed through the chamber. Jimin felt Jungkook's hand slip from his. "Jungkook," no answer. "Jungkook," the emergency lights came on. Jimin turned around and saw Jungkook standing several feet away, one hand pressed against his chest. Blood slowly spread across his shirt. His eyes met Jimin's. Then Jungkook collapsed. "Jungkook!" Jimin's scream tore through the underground chamber as he rushed forward and caught Jungkook before his body struck the floor, his knees hitting the cold concrete hard enough to send pain through his legs. Blood spread beneath Jungkook's fingers, dark against his shirt, and for one terrifying second Jimin could not hear anything except the frantic pounding of his own heart. "Jungkook, look at me." Jungkook's eyelids fluttered. "I'm here, don't close your eyes." Jimin pressed both hands against the wound. "Stay with me." Jungkook tried to smile. "You always panic, because you always do something stupid." Jimin's voice broke. "You promised me you wouldn't leave again." Jungkook's eyes opened a little wider. "I promised." "Then keep your promise." The person standing near the doorway immediately ran toward them. The bullet went through. Jimin looked up. "What?" "It went through his chest." "Then help him. We need to move him now." Jungkook's father stood motionless several feet away, staring at his son with an expression Jimin had never seen on him before. "Fear, genuine fear." "You shot him," Jungkook's father whispered. Jimin turned toward him. "Who? I don't know. You expect me to believe that?" "The shooter wasn't mine." Jimin looked toward the darkness. His uncle was gone. The gunshot had created enough confusion for him to escape. Jungkook groaned softly. Jimin immediately turned back. "We're leaving." The person who had brought them there nodded. "There's an emergency exit." Jimin carefully helped Jungkook stand. Jungkook leaned heavily against him, his breathing shallow. "Can you walk?" Jimin asked. "If you're beside me, then walk." They moved through the underground passage while Jungkook's father followed silently behind them. Jimin hated having him near them, but there was no time for confrontation. They reached a hidden garage where an old vehicle waited. The person opened the rear door. "Put him inside." Jimin climbed in beside Jungkook. "You're coming?" the person asked. Jimin nodded. "I'm not leaving him." The vehicle sped through the forest. Jungkook's head rested against Jimin's shoulder. His breathing was uneven. Jimin pressed his palm against Jungkook's cheek. "Stay awake. I'm trying. Tell me something." Jungkook smiled faintly. "What? Anything. You still talk when you're nervous." "You noticed." "I noticed everything about you." Jimin's eyes filled with tears. "Then notice this." He took Jungkook's hand. "I'm here." Jungkook squeezed his fingers weakly. "I know, and I'm not going anywhere." "Good." His eyes closed briefly. Jimin panicked. "Jungkook, I'm awake. Don't scare me." "Sorry, you keep apologizing, because I keep hurting you." Jimin shook his head. "Then stop hurting yourself." Jungkook opened his eyes. "I'll try." "No." Jimin leaned closer. "Promise." Jungkook stared at him. "I promise." They finally reached a private clinic hidden beyond the city. Doctors rushed Jungkook inside. Jimin stood in the corridor with blood covering his hands, his clothes, and the silver ring Jungkook had given him. For the first time since the night began, there was nothing he could do. He sat on a bench and stared at the ring. The engraving was simple. J&J, two initials. Two lives that had spent 7 years moving in opposite directions only to find their way back to the same place. Jungkook's father approached slowly. Jimin looked up. "Don't." The older man stopped. "I know you hate me. That's not strong enough. I deserve it." "Yes." The man lowered his head. "But there's something you need to know." Jimin laughed bitterly. "Another secret. The last one. I've heard that before. Your parents didn't trust anyone." He reached into his coat and removed a small envelope. "Except me." Jimin stared at it. "Why would I believe you?" "Because this belongs to your mother." Jimin took it reluctantly. "I found it years ago. Why didn't you give it to me?" "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of what the truth would do to you." Jimin opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph of his parents standing beside a young Jungkook. Jimin stared at the image. Jungkook was perhaps 8 or 9 years old. Jimin stood beside him, younger, smiling at the camera. Jimin's heart stopped. "We really knew each other." "Yes. Why did I forget?" "Because after the accident near the river, your parents became afraid someone would target you. And Jungkook, his father believed your family knew too much." Jimin looked at the photograph. "So our families were connected long before we understood anything." The older man nodded. "Your parents wanted to protect both of you. And you, I failed them." Jimin looked away. "Yes, you did." The older man accepted the words without protest. "But there is one thing I did right." "What?" "I kept the final evidence." Jimin looked at him. "Where?" "With Jungkook." Jimin frowned. "What do you mean?" "The silver chain." Jimin's eyes widened. He remembered the chain Jungkook had worn for 7 years. "That chain, your father gave it to Jungkook the night before the fire." Jimin touched the matching ring in his hand. "Why?" "Because inside it is a tiny storage device containing the original recording." Jimin's heart raced. The recording of what? The complete confession. Whose confession? The older man looked toward the operating room. Your uncle's. Hours passed before the doctor finally emerged. Jimin stood immediately. How is he? The bullet missed the heart by a narrow margin. He's stable. Jimin closed his eyes in relief. Can I see him for a few minutes? Jimin entered the room quietly. Jungkook was awake, connected to several machines, his face pale beneath the hospital light. He turned his head when he heard the door. Jimin. Jimin walked toward him. You scared me, I'm sorry. Don't. Jimin sat beside him. Just stay. Jungkook smiled weakly. I'm staying. Jimin took his hand. I found something. What? Your chain. Jungkook looked confused. Jimin carefully touched the silver chain around his wrist. Your father said it contains the original recording. Jungkook stared at it. I never knew, because you weren't supposed to. What does it prove? Everything. Jungkook looked at Jimin. Then it's finally over. Jimin smiled through tears. Maybe, Jungkook raised an eyebrow. Maybe, there will always be consequences. Are you afraid? Jimin looked at their hands. Yes. Of what? Of losing you again. Jungkook squeezed his fingers. You won't. You can't promise that. Then I'll promise something else. What? Jungkook looked directly into his eyes. Whatever time I have, I will spend it beside you. Jimin's tears finally fell. That's all I ever wanted. Jungkook slowly lifted his free hand and touched Jimin's cheek. Remember when you asked me what I wanted? Jimin smiled. One life with me. Yes, still, more than ever. Jimin leaned forward and rested his forehead against Jungkook's. Then we start again. Together, together. Months later, the investigation finally exposed the network that had destroyed both families. The recordings, financial documents, and testimony brought the truth into the light. Jimin's uncle was arrested. Jungkook's father was arrested as well. The people who had spent years hiding behind money and influence could no longer erase what they had done. Jimin returned to his childhood home one final time. Jungkook came with him. They stood in the study where everything had begun. Jimin opened the curtains and allowed sunlight to fill the room for the first time in years. Dust shimmered in the golden air. It doesn't feel haunted anymore, Jimin whispered. Jungkook stood beside him. Because you changed it. Jimin looked at him. No, we did. Jungkook smiled. They placed the old photograph of their younger selves inside a new frame. Jimin looked at the two boys smiling innocently at the camera. They had no idea what was coming. Maybe that's a good thing. Why? Because they still believed life could be beautiful. Jimin reached for Jungkook's hand. Do you believe that now? Jungkook looked at him for a long moment. I do. Even after everything. Because after everything, you're still here. Jimin smiled. So are you. Jungkook looked down at the silver ring on Jimin's finger. You kept it. Of course, you never gave me an answer. Jimin laughed softly. I thought I did. Not clearly enough. Jimin turned toward him. Fine. He lifted Jungkook's hand and placed it against his chest. My answer is yes. Jungkook's eyes softened. Yes to what? To one life. Jimin smiled through tears. One life with you. Jungkook pulled him into his arms. The embrace was quiet, warm. And nothing like the desperate embraces they had shared while running from danger. This one carried no fear, no secrets, no countdown, only relief. Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, birds began singing. Jimin closed his eyes against Jungkook's shoulder and listened to his heartbeat. 7 years of silence had finally ended. They had lost time they could never recover, but they had gained something neither of them had dared to ask for anymore, a future. Jungkook kissed Jimin's forehead. No more disappearing. Jimin smiled. No more running. No more secrets. No more lies. Jungkook held him tighter. Then what do we have left? Jimin looked up at him. Everything. And for the first time, neither of them was afraid of tomorrow. 3 years later, Jimin stood beneath the warm glow of hundreds of tiny lights, watching the evening sky turn gold beyond the garden windows. The old house no longer felt like a place of ghosts. It had become a home again. The study where his parents had once hidden their secrets had been transformed into a quiet library. The photographs that once carried pain now rested inside new frames. And on the piano sat a single silver chain that had once carried the truth that nearly destroyed them. Jimin touched the ring on his finger and smiled. Behind him, Jungkook appeared carrying 2 cups of coffee. You're thinking too much again, Jungkook said. Jimin turned around. How do you know? You stare at the window whenever you're thinking. I do not. You do. Jimin laughed softly. You've become annoyingly observant. I've always been observant. Unfortunately. Jungkook handed him the coffee before stepping beside him. Their shoulders touched. For a while, neither spoke. They didn't need to. After everything they had survived, silence no longer frightened them. Once, silence had meant abandonment. Now, silence meant peace. Jimin looked around the room. Do you ever think about that night? Every day. Jimin's smile faded slightly. Do you regret coming back? Jungkook immediately turned toward him. Never. Even knowing what happened. Especially because of what happened. Jimin looked down at his coffee. We lost 7 years. I know. I sometimes wonder who we would have been if none of it had happened. Jungkook reached for his hand. Maybe we would have been happier. Jimin looked at him. Maybe, but we wouldn't understand each other the way we do now. Jimin squeezed his fingers. You always find a way to make painful things sound beautiful. Jungkook smiled. That's because you're the one listening. Jimin rolled his eyes, but he couldn't stop smiling. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. The same trees that had once surrounded a frightened boy running from a past he couldn't escape. The same trees that had witnessed Jimin and Jungkook finding each other again. Jimin looked at Jungkook. Do you remember what you said that night? Jungkook pretended to think. I said a lot of things. One thing. Jungkook's eyes softened. What do you want? Jimin nodded. Jungkook smiled. One life with you. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. You still mean it? Jungkook stepped closer. Every morning. Jimin laughed through his tears. Even when I'm annoying. Especially then. Even when I steal your food. That's when I question everything. Jimin playfully pushed his shoulder. Jungkook laughed and pulled him into an embrace. Jimin rested his head against Jungkook's chest. His heartbeat was steady. Familiar. Safe. For years, Jimin had believed that love was something fragile. Something that could disappear overnight. Something that could be stolen by secrets, fear, distance, or time. But Jungkook had taught him something different. Love could break. Love could become lost. Love could be buried beneath years of silence. But if two people were brave enough to search for each other again, love could also return. Not as the same love. Something stronger. Something wiser. Something that had survived the worst night of their lives. Jungkook kissed Jimin's forehead. Are you happy? Jimin closed his eyes. Yes. Really? Jimin opened his eyes and looked at him. For the first time, I don't have to wonder. Jungkook smiled. Jimin took his hand and intertwined their fingers. Stay. Jungkook's expression softened. I will. No matter what. No matter what. Jimin smiled. Then I have everything I need. Years ago, they had stood in darkness surrounded by danger, blood, secrets, and unanswered questions. Jimin had asked Jungkook what he wanted. Jungkook had answered with only 4 words. One life with you. Now, standing together beneath the quiet evening sky, Jimin finally understood that the answer had never been about perfection. It had never been about having a life without pain. It had simply been about choosing each other every morning after the pain was gone. Jimin rested his head against Jungkook's shoulder. The lights around them glowed softly. The house was quiet. The past was finally where it belonged. Behind them, and ahead of them, was an unwritten future. Together, one life, one choice, one love. Jimin smiled. Jungkook squeezed his hand. And this time, neither of them let go.